case.
Hi, I'm Val, or Space Valkyries, and I'm a queer Mexican-American variety streamer and sci-fi fantasy writer. And I've never used a camera before like this for a video like this. Usually when I stream, I have what I call my hi-bi cam, so I'm very infrequently featured on camera for long. So if I seem a little flaily, I'm stepping out of my comfort zone for this, but it was important to me to actually be seen this time for Unidos. So, hi. Have you ever played a game that made you feel seen? If you're white, this is probably easy to answer. If you're white and cishet and a guy, you can probably think of several very easily. But games that have a Latinx or Latina femme like me as a protagonist are rare. So for my first ever Unidos Online, I wanted to showcase NeoCab and flail about why you should play this game, even if maybe visual novels aren't your jam. So, video editing go! NeoCab is a cyberpunk visual novel. It came out in 2019, but I didn't play it until 2020, and honestly it was a very needed experience in the middle of a pandemic. Lena, who is Latina, is one of the last human taxi drivers in the city of Los Ojos. Get it? Because Los Ojos, or LO for short. It's basically LA, but make it Big Brother, which is really on the nose because it's literally like an eye, so it's always watching and just, I love it. It's great, but it's creepy. Lena goes to live with her friend Savvy, who is a bit of a rich white woman activist type. On the night Lena arrives in Los Ojos to move in with Savvy, Savvy disappears. And I guess just didn't give Lena the keys to their shared apartment beforehand, which really sucks for Lena. From there, Lena has to drive around and pick up packs or passengers to make enough money and to maybe crash at a hotel at the end of the night. All while she still tries to find her friend and survive a giant megacorporation trying to push out all human drivers in the city so they can be the ultimate automated car provider. Like, seriously, Capra, the big evil corporation in the game, is like, what if Amazon bought Uber? Which, now that I've said that, I'm really sorry for putting that out into the ether. Needless to say, all of that is very bad for Lena, a cab driver for the company called NeoCab, which, like, a title of the game, roll credits, we're done here. The cyberpunk setting is both understated and omnipresent. You've got your awesome vaporwave/synthwave soundtrack, which is amazing ambience and helps amplify the emotions of the dialogue because there's no voice acting. You've got your neon vibes and glowy tech jewelry. Like, okay. At science and technology, please give me the glowy hair highlights and the glowy earrings and the glowy clothing highlights. Like, I need, thank you. So many of the conversations you have with your packs are all about how capitalism is bad, you know, and difficult to survive and exist in, which it is, especially when you give corporations like Capra all your private data all the time. And it even talks about how sometimes you have to harvest said data to survive in this hellscape because, hey, it's a gig economy and you gotta eat, which I'm a Twitch streamer. I don't relate to that at all. So yeah, this game's not just neon lights and dystopian 80s retro flavor. It has some pretty topical moments, like about automated cars and the biases in tech, and about how social media activism can help define a movement while also being superficial and super fake at the same time. Truly, the game has some really deep thinky thought moments, and yes, thinky thoughts is the technical term, so the two main game mechanics in this really make it a memorable visual novel, as they can open up or close off your dialogue or packs options. The first mechanic is basically Uber Driver, the Cyberpunk Visual Novel Edition, which, now that I'm thinking about it, is just Uber, but with, like, more automated cars and despair. You have to make enough money to keep your car charged and to rent a place to sleep at night. You also have to keep your rating above 4 stars, which is too real, and your dialogue interactions with certain packs can absolutely tank your star rating. Some of them can be annoying, like a snobby white guy that just won't like you no matter what. And those were the worst because they gave you a 1-star no matter what, which just, it sucked. They were just entitled jerks and you had to play nice. And sometimes the game wants you to have an honest conversation instead of playing nice. The writers did something fun with this, or I had fun with it at least. Here's where the second mechanic comes into play. You basically have an accurate mood ring. It's called a feel grid. People can see it and react to it. And some choices are restricted depending on your emotional state. You have feel good green to sad blue to like angry red, and it's a mood ring, but it's a cool mood ring. Sometimes if you're feeling really chill, you get highlighted green dialogue options that you can't pick if you're, say, super angry. And sometimes you're just too mad to be nice to someone, and I think that's really cool. Like, how often does that ever get put in the game? Now here's the part that made me feel really seen. Lena's whole journey through this story, for one, but also her dialogue interactions with her paxies, the passenger. You get the idea. My favorites were Una, Liam, and Fiona. There is also a character named Azul who uses they, them pronouns, which back when I first played this in 2020, I was still figuring out my own gender journey. Okay, I still am, because gender is a giant ball of chaos and tears and confusion. But seeing that helped normalize that it's okay to want to use they, them pronouns. And now I happily use both she and they pronouns. So, yeah. But one of my favorite moments in the game came from Fiona. She's so great, by the way, and I would like die for her. I'm just saying, she's the best. And I will take no questions. Thank you. You can ultimately end up explaining your situation to her. You tell her about Savvy's disappearance and how basically you showed up in LO, Savvy asked you for a ride, then ditched you and disappeared. You can tell her everything. And Fiona will just bluntly ask, "Is Savvy white? Because this sounds like white woman privilege to me. And you deserve better." And the way I had to pause the game because I was screaming. I literally shared a screenshot of that dialogue moment with a friend and we just key smashed a lot. How many of us have been in that situation, you know? Where there's a dynamic of like, well, she's a cishet white woman, she's got money, she can get away with things we never could, or do things we can't without being judged entirely differently, or having an entirely different set of way more dangerous repercussions. You know? But how often do you see that expressed in a game, or even acknowledged at all? There's also a few times in the game where Lena will express fear of offending a Pax because she's Latina, or being afraid of being pulled over. She knows even being a little rude in those situations will demote her star rating or worse. And it felt good to see that acknowledged. Neocab is ultimately about finding confidence in your own voice and standing up for yourself in the face of someone else's privilege and manipulation of you. And existing in this hellscape that is capitalism as not a white person. Be it a shitty friend who doesn't get how different your lives are and just wants to be a performative white activist who gets all the credit for other people's work. Or be it a mega corporation like Capra that's definitely not an Amazon, definitely not, that owns an entire city and has eyes everywhere because get it? Los ojos. Wait, we come back. You get to define what you say and do in this game, especially in the ending, on your terms and your emotions. Well, on Lena's anyway, but you know. There are multiple endings, but the one I got was just so good. No spoilers, but it was good. It was really, really good and impactful. And again, this isn't a big action shooter. It's a quieter, more introspective visual novel about one person's experience. But it's a cathartic experience, you know? And sometimes we really, really need that, especially in games where Latina protagonists are rare. Like I did some basic Googling for this video, and the number of Latinx or Latina or Latina protagonists, like we're talking like main characters, playable characters in AAA games, is like Sombra and Loba? I think there's a couple more in Valorant, which is not nothing. Representation is important, but it's just so non-existent. We need more. We deserve more. So I cried when I got to the end of this game because Lena was the closest I'd ever gotten to feeling seen in a game at that point. It was one of the first times a game went, yeah, so the white woman is being performative and is using you and doesn't get that you have entirely different life experiences. And I'm gonna be honest, growing up being one of the few mixed kids in a very, very, very white family, I was taught to downplay who I was. It's the point where I almost didn't feel Latina or Latinx enough to submit this video and to be part of Unidos online or anything, you know? And that's why I did it anyway. Flailing and anxious the whole time. Yeah. And that's why NeoCab came to mind for this, and why I wanted to share it with all of you. It made me feel seen and made me feel valid in my identity. And that's good storytelling. We deserve to feel seen and feel connected to characters that look like us and come from places like us. I want to see more games where I can see myself, a non-binary, bisexual, demisexual, Mexican-American with chronic pain and fatigue issues. I want to see Latinx and Latina folks of all kinds and from all places just thriving always, more than outside of Latinx or Latina Heritage Month. It means a lot to me. Being part of this means a lot to me. So, thanks for perceiving this.